Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review. And in this review, we're looking at the very latest offering from Erroyl. I've reviewed a couple of Erroyls before and always been very impressed with the quality, the build quality, and the price as well. This is the Duke Melrose, and this is a massive step up for them. It's completely Swiss made. It's Swiss made automatic as well with an ETA movement. And it's still very reasonably priced at around £500. So without further ado, let's have a look. So I thought I'd give you the unboxing process as well. So we have a very lovely wooden presentation case that it comes in. At the back of this box, we also have our nice instruction manual, warranty card as well. So that's a very sneaky little place to put it. That's nice. If I move that out the way. So here we have our beautiful case. You can see it's very nice and shiny, and we open up, and here we have the watch itself, the watch in question. So this is, as you can see, the grey dial version. There's also space under there for a nice little cleaning cloth. So there we go. So first impressions, very nice, beautiful case, and just the general packaging and feel to the watch has a great start. So let's talk about the specs then. Price is Australian dollars, $899. So that equals to approximately £520 currently. Size-wise, very, very suitable size for a nice, classy dress watch. We have a diameter of 39mm, and then a height of a mere 11mm, and then a lug-to-lug length of 44mm. So very nice shape, very nice size, perfect for smart dress watch. Go under a sleeve very easily, under a shirt cuff as well, and it's not too big so that it's really harsh and brash. I find the 39mm diameter is spot on. Weight wise, it's 137 grams, so we've got quite a nice bit of weight to it. It does feel very good quality on the wrist. Obviously that's helped by the Jubilee bracelet as well, which in itself is quite a big chunk of steel, but it just gives you that feeling of a really high quality timepiece, the nice weight. Water resistance is 10 atmospheres or 100 meters, so it's a push-pull crown, so that's obviously the weakness. To be honest, I wouldn't recommend swimming in it anyway. It's not really that kind of watch, so it's protected against any accidents. So if you do drop it accidentally in a little bit of water, then you are protected, but I wouldn't recommend doing anything more than that, any swimming or anything like that. So the lug width, we have a 20mm lug width, so I think that suits perfectly fine with the diameter of the watch. It's also 20mm at the buckle as well, so we have no pinching in. I personally prefer to see straps like that. I find I like the slightly wider strap. So I think it works quite nicely with the Jubilee style bracelet. And then our movement is the incredibly popular ETA 2824-2. So what more can you say about that movement apart from it being the most popular automatic Swiss-made movement available today, the one that can be found in pretty much the most watches out there, reliable, easy to fix, just keeps on ticking. And a great addition to any watch really. So Erroyl have done a great job in including that movement in the Duke Melrose. And as you can see, we have a nice exhibition case back, and you can see a slight customized rotor as well, which is cool. So I put it on my Lepsy watch scope, and this watch in particular is coming out a little bit fast, plus 10.4 seconds a day. So I usually say anything around 10 seconds or low is acceptable. So this is, more or less around 10 seconds. So it is acceptable. It would have been nicer to have seen it be a little tiny bit more regulated. Closer to the 5 seconds a day would be ideal, but that's obviously COSC specs, so you can't always expect that. But many times I do get watches in which are. So it just would have been nicer if it was regulated a little bit more. But this is the kind of movement which is so easy to regulate and get within COSC specs if you want to. Warranty is 2 years, so you are protected for a couple of years just in case anything does happen. So let's have a look at it in closer more detail, element by element. So starting off with the dial. So first thing I want to mention is the fact that the grey is a very classy, elegant colour. Really the only negative I have of the entire watch is the fact that the border of the hands are the same colour, so it almost makes the hands even smaller than they actually are. I'm not entirely sure why we have these thick borders on it. I think it probably would have been better if they were entirely the white loom, but that's obviously just a design choice. I just think it decreases legibility a little bit, but you can still read it. It's still perfectly fine, and when you have like a slight shadow on it, you can still see the surround to the hands perfectly fine. It's just maybe I probably would have preferred to have seen a bit more of the inner of the hand rather than so much border to the hands. But there you go, that's my personal preference, and really the only negative of the dial. I do like the numerals used. There's no applied elements at all. Everything's printed. If I just move the minute hand, we then have our little date wheel as well at 6, which is the same colour as the dial as well, which is always a nice little touch. The surround to the date wheel is very accurately done as well. We'll get the macro lens on later, so we'll see that in much closer detail. This central ring has a concentric circular pattern to it as well, which you can't really see with the naked eye, but as you get close, obviously it's much more apparent. And then I do like this little minute track around the outside, splits up the dial quite nicely. And then the hour numbers, as I mentioned before, just around the outside, they're all fully loomed. And quite a nice classy font type that's been used for them as well. We have this like train track minute hand around the rehaut as well, which just frames the entire dial quite nicely. So all in all, quite a simple but very pleasing to the eye design. It's very difficult to find fault with it, really. I mean, it does the job perfectly fine. The only issue worth keeping in mind is the border to the hands, but everything else is pretty much spot on. Manufacturing quality is absolutely perfect as well. So moving on to the case. It is a fairly standard barrel case, but we have this nice little tuck in on the underside, so the case back is a lot thinner than the top, so it does feel on the wrist a little bit smaller than the 39mm diameter. It makes it much easier to wear. Have this very splendid little pumpkin crown as well, which I personally really like. It's got the Erroyl logo really nicely engraved on the end as well, as you can see there. Despite it being very fine and precise, it's really well machined. The grip is really good as well, so it is really nice to hand wind, really easy to set and unset, pull and push it out. So that's a good little crown there. So the majority of the case is polished. Apart from, we have like a brushed top of the lugs, and then this brushed kind of ridge going across, joining the two lugs together. The sides are fully polished. Flipping it over to the underside, that's all fully polished as well. So, very nice shiny watch, if you will. It creates quite a statement, picks up the light well, and does look like quite the statement piece when you're wearing it. Obviously, we have a polished bezel as well. Double dome sapphire crystal, so as you can see, if we get it right at a tight angle, it's still very legible. So that's the top dome and the bottom dome working together to keep things legible at these tight angles. The AR anti-reflective coating is really good as well. As you can see throughout this video, it's pretty crystal clear. We don't have like any colour flashes or anything like that, so we've got no blue hue, but it's just subtly and simply doing its job really well. Moving on to the case back, it's just secured in by 6 screws with a large exhibition window. Obviously, the main point of it is to show off the nice movement, and it's doing a fine job at that. So we have a few little bits of detail engraved around the outside. So moving on to the movements, the ETA 2824. This is the standard caliber. So we have like the much higher calibers available, but obviously they do come at a price. I personally think the standard caliber is perfectly fine to look at. We have some nice pearlage on the bridge, The custom rotor is a nice little touch as well with the E logo. I think the E logo is laser etched onto the rotor. Again, we'll have a look at it in closer detail. As you can see here, it's ever so slightly misaligned to the center. It's not quite in the center, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but again, it's not something that you really notice unless you look at it very close up. But in general, the finishing of the movement is pretty much spot on, as you can imagine. Moving on to the Jubilee bracelet. So we have five columns of links. They're a nice variety of finishes as well. So we have brushed, polished, brushed, polished, brushed, and polished on the outer edges as well. So it does create quite a nice variety of reflections as you're looking at it, contrasting the dull reflection of the brushed to the more shiny reflection of the polished. Works really nicely. It does create quite a spectacle when you're looking at it as well. My personal preference, I'm not usually too keen on Jubilee bracelets. I find them to be a slightly the kind of bracelet that will appear to the slightly older gentleman than me personally. So whilst it's not my favourite bracelet, I can really appreciate the build quality. I can appreciate that it's actually quite a nice, nicely done one in terms of style as well. You know, the fact that it's quite thick and it's the same width the whole way as well. You know, just little modernisation touches which increase the you know, make it more popular amongst other people who may not necessarily be quite so keen on Jubilee bracelets. Butterfly clasp is a lovely little touch as well. As you can see, we have the Erroyl badge, which sort of like overlays over the top of the lower clip. So we see this lower clip, we have a nice little indent, and then the bottom of the badge just sits on top and sits inside that little ingress. So that's a really lovely little touch, and it's really accurately made as well. So very nice little clasp there for Erroyl. So good job on that one. Okay, so let's get the macro lens on and have a look at it in closer detail. Starting off with the dial then, if I just give it a quick wipe. So we can see here our print work, nice and fine. Our hands, we can see the quite thick borders on them. We also have our numerals, like so. So the loom isn't the strongest loom going. It's perfectly acceptable, but nothing too bright. Don't expect too much from it, basically. We have our concentric circular pattern as well in this inner disc. And then here's our nice, lovely date window as well. Really subtle, but done at a really high quality. As you can see there, the border to it is splendid. The colour is a perfect match as well, so it sits within the dial really nicely. Very subtle, but easy to read as well. Obviously we have Swiss made, those two important words at the bottom there. So everything's very nice and refined, very nicely done. So yeah. Moving on to the case then, if I give the case a little bit of a rub. So here's the polished side. You can see our polished side and our polished bezel. Already we've picked up a few tiny little hairline scratches, which is perfectly, you know, as you can expect that with a polished case. We have our brush top as well. Moving on to the other side with the crown. So there's the E, very accurately engraved, and our nice little grip as well on our pumpkin crown. Makes it very nice and easy to use, and we can see our little thin brushed key line throughout the side of the case as well. Moving on to the case back then. If I give it another quick wipe. So we have our few little specifics engraved around. Didn't actually notice that before, but we have this nice little brushed ring just on the outside, just before the exhibition case back as well. So that's a nice little touch. Splits up the case back a little bit. And then moving on to the movement itself. So we can see we have this E logo laser etched on top of the rotor. Again, as I mentioned before, ever so slightly out of centre, which is a bit of a shame. But if I just get the balance wheel showing. There she is, ticking away, and you can see we have our nice little ETA logo there with our 2824-2 markings as well. So everything in here is nice and clean, as you'd expect. So there we have it. So moving on to the bracelet. Just have a look at the top of the bracelet. So we have our brushed side, then a polished, and then a brushed, polished, and then a brushed. So it's all nicely linked together. It's really silky, very buttery, really comfortable and easy to wear as well. Have our polished sides as well, and then the underside is completely brushed, so that's very nice and comfortable against the wrist as well. So moving on to the butterfly clasp. There's our little buttons on the side there. And then, so let's start with this side. So that's our initial bottom half, and then we place that section within there, and that's our little E badge sitting on top. So there we go. Okay, so price wise, I think, you know, you can't really complain. Just over 500 quid for a Swiss made automatic with an ETA movement in. I think that's pretty much spot on. Obviously you can get cheaper movements, thinking of like Steinhardt Ocean One for instance, but a lot of them tend to be homages to other watches, mainly the Submariner of course. So the fact that this is such a unique style, you know, really nicely put together, nicely designed as well, lovely presentation case as well. I think it's a very, very it's an excellent proposition at the price really. If you're looking for a solid Swiss-made classic dress watch, then this is a lovely option for you. Again, the only negative point I have about it is the slightly thick borders on the hands makes it a little bit not necessarily difficult to read, but it does affect the legibility. So if you're like me, I'm not really that bothered because I can still read the time really easily on it. It's just that I wanted to raise that for some of you who may be concerned about that. But yeah, the build quality is spot on. Design is lovely as well. So Erroyl have done a really great job on this, and I've really enjoyed my time with it. So this was the Erroyl Duke Melrose, and that's what it's all about.